Have you ever looked back and realized that the most important lessons in life often come decades too late? Have you ever felt that sudden clarity, the kind that makes you wonder why you didn't see it sooner? And if you're somewhere between 55 and 80, have you noticed that quiet little voice inside asking, "Am I missing something before it's too late?" At 89, a strange kind of wisdom settles in. Things I once brushed off as unimportant now feel glaringly obvious, almost impossible to ignore. And the truth is, many of those lessons would have changed the course of my life had I learned them earlier. If you're in your 50s, 60s, or even late 70s, you may already feel hints of this tug, the awareness that time isn't limitless and choices matter more than you think. In this video, I want to walk you through 10 harsh truths that I've come to understand far too well in my later years. These are truths I wish someone had whispered to me when I was 60. Some deal with health, some with relationships, and others cut directly to the heart of what it really means to grow older with grace, strength, and dignity. They aren't here to frighten you, but they may be the wake-up call you've been waiting for. Because no one truly explains what aging demands of you until you're already too far down the road to make the easy adjustments. But here's the good news. If you're listening to this now, you still have time to change, to live differently, and to move forward with more clarity and purpose. Stay with me until the very end, because one or two of these truths might flip a switch inside you that you didn't even know was there. And trust me, if I had heard this when I was younger, I would have lived differently. I would have made choices with more urgency and more intention. Truth 1. Time is a ruthless accountant. The tricky part is you don't actually feel time slipping away. There's no alarm bell, no flashing warning sign. Instead, it creeps in quietly, almost politely, hidden in your daily routines, your habits, and every single "I'll do it tomorrow" you tell yourself. You keep stacking those tomorrows, thinking there's always room to catch up. At 60, it feels like you still have plenty of time. And in some ways, you do. But what most people never realize until it's too late is that time doesn't just take away your days. It takes away your choices. Slowly, almost invisibly, it trims down your options. By the time you reach your late 70s or 80s, you're not deciding between 3 or 4 paths anymore. You're simply trying to walk steadily down the only one that's left. I've watched friends put off the very things that mattered: travel they dreamed about, reconciling with family, starting a hobby, getting a health checkup, even simple joys like going out dancing or writing down their stories. They all thought they had more time. They didn't, and I've done the same. The most painful part isn't that those opportunities are gone. It's realizing I let them expire quietly, almost without noticing. Let me share a simple but unforgettable example. I had a friend named Walter. At 68, he told me he wanted to write a book for his grandchildren. He had the stories, the wisdom, the passion. Every time we spoke, he would smile and say, "I'll start next month." But the months slipped by, then the years. By the time he was 78, his eyesight had weakened. His energy had faded, and his concentration wasn't what it used to be. The stories stayed in his heart, but they never made it onto paper. He didn't run out of inspiration. He ran out of time to carry it out. And now, his family will never truly know the depth of who he was. That's what I mean when I say time is a ruthless accountant. It keeps the books tight. It remembers every delay. And one day, it closes the ledger whether you're ready or not. It remembers every delay, and it collects the interest. The truth is, time always closes the ledger, whether you're prepared or not. That's why if something has been weighing on your heart, a trip you've dreamed of, a letter you've been meaning to write, a conversation you've been avoiding, or a change you know you need to make, don't wait. Time is generous only to those who choose to act, and ruthless to those who keep postponing life. Truth 2. Health doesn't collapse suddenly. It erodes quietly over the years. Most people imagine health problems strike like lightning: a sudden heart attack, a frightening diagnosis, or a dangerous fall. But in reality, the real damage usually begins long before any symptoms show. It happens quietly, creeping into your habits, feeding on neglect, and taking advantage of the excuses we tell ourselves. At 60, you might still feel like you can eat whatever you want, skip daily walks, brush off nagging joint pain, and promise yourself you'll get serious about your health next year. But here's the harsh reality. Each year you delay, the foundation of your well-being grows weaker. You may not notice the cracks at first, but over time, they become impossible to ignore. Your energy doesn't bounce back like it used to. Your sleep becomes lighter, less refreshing. Your digestion acts up in ways you once never thought about. And slowly, it's not just your body that feels heavier. Your spirit carries the weight too. Eventually, it all catches up, not as an abstract idea, but in ways that directly shape your daily life. You hesitate before bending down to pick something up. You avoid taking the stairs because they feel daunting. Without realizing it, you begin organizing your life around your limitations instead of your freedom. I remember Margaret, a dear friend from church. At 63, she often felt tired during our weekly walks, but she brushed it off as just getting older. She ignored the signs for years. Then one afternoon, she tripped while stepping up a curb and broke her hip. That single fall snowballed into 2 surgeries, a year of painful rehab, and ultimately the end of her independence. And it all began with something as simple as feeling a little more tired than usual. We like to believe these small changes are harmless, but they're not. They are messages, subtle warnings your body gives before it's too late. Your body always whispers before it screams. If you don't pay attention early, you'll be forced to listen later, but under someone else's terms, not your own. And it's not just about the physical side of aging. Your emotional and mental health ride right alongside your body, shaping how strong and resilient you truly feel. Sleep, movement, the foods you choose, even the little aches and signals you choose to ignore, they all add up over time. The difference between an 85-year-old who moves through life with energy and one who struggles with every step often begins decades earlier, in their 60s. The harsh truth is this: your body is not a machine that suddenly shuts off one day. It's more like a garden, delicate and living, constantly shaped by what you plant, what you nourish, and what you neglect. If you fail to tend it in your 60s, by the time you reach your 80s, the weeds of neglect, stiffness, fatigue, chronic discomfort grow thick and heavy. They become obstacles you must fight through just to walk across the room, to get a restful night's sleep, or to enjoy a simple day without pain. That's why the little signals matter. Don't just watch for the big, frightening diagnoses. Pay attention to the smaller annoyances. The knees that creak when you stand up, the bloating that always follows dinner, the stiffness you feel after sitting too long. These aren't just inconveniences. They're invitations, subtle reminders from your body asking you to act before it's too late. Will you wait until they grow into something you can't ignore? Or will you respond now while you still have the chance? Answer them now, because the earlier you respond, the easier it is to keep your body and spirit strong. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss an upcoming video. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content designed to inform, inspire, and empower you. Now, let's move forward. Truth 3. Loneliness is not cured by company, it's cured by connection. You can sit in a crowded room, surrounded by voices and laughter, and still feel completely alone. I know, because I've been there. At birthday parties, family dinners, even in my own home with people nearby, yet still carrying a quiet ache in my chest. That's the kind of loneliness no one ever warns you about. It has nothing to do with how many people are physically around you, and everything to do with how deeply you are truly seen and understood. In your 60s, life can still be very full. You may be working, helping raise grandkids, meeting friends for coffee, or attending family gatherings. On the surface, it feels like connection. But is it really? The harsh truth is that activity is not the same as intimacy. Being busy does not guarantee that you're truly connected. Conversations that never go beyond the weather, errands, or casual updates eventually leave you with an emptiness that no amount of social activity can fill. Over time, if you don't intentionally nurture something deeper, real honesty, vulnerability, and space where you can simply be yourself, your emotional muscles quietly begin to atrophy, just like unused physical ones. By the time you reach your 80s, reaching out feels heavier, opening up feels harder, and for many, it even becomes difficult to recall what genuine connection once felt like. I think of Richard, an old friend of mine. He was always the life of the party, always surrounded by people, always making others laugh. Yet after his wife passed, he looked at me one day and said softly, "I don't think anyone really knows me anymore. Maybe they never did." That silence that followed struck me harder than anything else, because it revealed a truth few admit out loud. We wait too long to build the kind of relationships that really matter. We let ourselves get swept up in small talk, in politeness, in the illusion that being social means being truly connected. But it doesn't. The older you get, the more essential it becomes to have at least one person in your life who knows the real you, the stories you've never told, the regrets you've carried, the dreams you still hold, the quirks that make you who you are. Without that, loneliness doesn't just arrive as a passing moment. It settles into your life as a permanent state of being. And don't fall into the trap of thinking it will somehow fix itself later when you have more time. You won't simply stumble upon your people someday. True connection is something you build carefully and slowly, brick by brick. And that building has to start now, while you still have the energy to reach out, the humility to forgive, the courage to share, and the willingness to invest your time in someone who matters. Connection doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being understood. And the truth is, very few people make it to their 80s with a full, satisfied heart, unless they started creating space for genuine connection decades earlier. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by choosing to open up, by sharing more than surface-level chatter, by letting yourself be known. Call someone today. Share something real. Be willing to go beyond the polite, "How are you?" Bye. Ommerski. And instead ask, "How is your heart?" At first, it might feel uncomfortable, maybe even awkward, but it's worth it, because this is the only kind of company that truly lasts. Busyness fades, politeness wears thin, but real connection, the kind built on honesty, vulnerability, and presence, becomes the anchor that holds you steady as the years go on. Truth 4. Your children will live their lives, not yours. This is one of the hardest truths to accept as you grow older. The children you raised, the ones you poured your love, energy, and sacrifices into, will eventually choose paths that don't revolve around you. And that doesn't mean they don't care or love you deeply. It means they are human, just as we were when we were younger, carving out lives of our own. In your 60s, especially when your kids are grown and busy building careers, families, and futures, it's easy to feel that tug to hold on tighter. You may find yourself offering more advice, stepping in more often, or even sacrificing your own needs, believing it will somehow bring closeness or gratitude later. But here's the wisdom you only truly grasp with age. Your children won't remember the times you gave up everything for them. What they remember most is how you showed up, with joy, with peace, with laughter, and with genuine interest in living your own life. I've watched many people my age pour their entire emotional well-being into their adult children. They wait by the phone for a call, organize their weeks around visits, or spend endless hours caring for grandkids, all while forgetting to nurture their own identity and boundaries. And over time, the weight of unmet expectations can quietly turn into disappointment, resentment, or a deep loneliness that no visit can fix. And when your children eventually choose partners, careers, or even new cities that no longer revolve around you, it can sting. For many parents, it feels like betrayal. But the reality is, it isn't betrayal at all. It's simply life unfolding. Your kids don't owe you their lives. You gave them life so they could step into the world and live it fully. That was always the silent agreement, even if it didn't feel that way at the time. I think of Alice, a woman I met years ago in a retirement community. She had devoted her entire existence to raising 4 children, running herself ragged for decades to smooth out their paths and make their lives easier. But when she turned 80, she confessed, "I realize I don't even know who I am outside of being their mother." That single realization shattered her, not because her children were ungrateful or unkind, but because she had never taken the time to build an identity or a life that truly belonged to her. If you constantly push your own joy aside for the sake of your children, you may believe you're fostering closeness, but in reality, what happens is subtle self-abandonment. Over the years, it doesn't create deeper love. It creates quiet resentment on both sides. Your children will inevitably make choices, some that align with your hopes and some that don't. And when they don't, it can hurt. But that divergence isn't a reflection of your worth as a parent. It's simply the natural rhythm of life. What you can control is how you live the years ahead. You can nurture friendships that bring you laughter, explore hobbies that light you up, invest in your health, or even open yourself up to love again if you're fortunate. When your children see you doing these things, when they witness you living rather than waiting, they don't feel burdened by your happiness. Instead, they feel inspired, free to live their own lives without guilt, and closer to you in a healthier, more genuine way. Truth 5. You can't earn back the moments you've missed with your spouse. This truth cuts deep because, by the time most people realize it, the window has already closed. In your 60s, it's easy to think there's still plenty of time to patch things up, to take that trip together, to spend quiet evenings on the porch, or to simply sit side by side and be present. But here's the harsh reality. Time doesn't slow down for relationships any more than it does for the body. And every single day, you choose silence instead of kindness, distraction instead of attention, or resentment instead of understanding. You're spending something you can never get back. I've seen marriages that looked perfectly fine to outsiders slowly unravel in the later years. Not because of a dramatic betrayal, but because of something far more common: years of quiet neglect. Failing to listen, forgetting to laugh, going through the motions while life quietly slipped away. You don't notice it in the beginning. You convince yourself, we're just busy, things will get better after this phase. But the phases never really end. One stage of life bleeds into another, and before you know it, the kids are grown, the house is quiet, and suddenly it's just the two of you, sitting at opposite ends of the couch, realizing with a heavy heart how far apart you've drifted. I'll never forget Harold, a man I once knew who lost his wife at 82. At her funeral, he stood beside me with tears in his eyes and said, "I would give anything for just one more dinner where I actually looked at her instead of the television." That moment has stayed with me ever since. Because it's never the big things that haunt you. It's the small, missed glances, the compliments you didn't give, the touches you forgot to offer. We tell ourselves there's more time to repair, more time to love better, more time to start again. But the truth is, there isn't. And the hardest reality is this: even if your spouse is still here physically, the version of them you once knew may no longer be. Time changes people. Illness steals pieces of them. Grief, memory loss, or simply the weight of fatigue can dull their presence. That's why if you still have the chance today, you need to take it. Say the words you've been holding back. Let go of the arguments that don't matter. Move closer instead of pulling away. Ask how they're truly feeling, not just out of habit, but because you care. Surprise them with small gestures of love. Reach for their hand in the quiet moments of the day, when the world isn't demanding anything from you. Because in the end, those are the memories that will fill the silence once they're gone. And if you've already lost them, or maybe the relationship itself has faded over time, don't let your heart stay closed forever. It's never too late to seek connection, to build new companionships, or even to love again in a different way. But the very first step is being honest with yourself, acknowledging what was lost, and deciding what can still be saved. The truth is, we don't actually run out of love. What we run out of are the opportunities to show it. And once those opportunities are gone, they rarely return. So don't wait for a grand gesture or some perfect occasion. It's the small, everyday moments, the smile across the table, the gentle touch on the arm, the words of encouragement that carry the deepest weight. Because once those moments slip away, they're gone forever. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights meaningful, please comment number 5 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Your support truly helps us continue creating valuable content to both inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Truth 6. The body keeps the score, and it always sends the bill later. You might feel strong today, capable, even convincing yourself that skipping a walk here and there, grabbing fast food one more time, or brushing off that nagging ache won't make much difference in the long run. But the reality is, your body is keeping track. It doesn't forget. It's like a quiet accountant, recording every choice, every stress, every late night, and every shortcut you thought you got away with. In your 60s, there's still time to pivot, to rewrite the story. You can undo more than you think, rebuild strength, reset daily habits, and rethink how you care for the one home you'll live in forever, your own body. But if you don't take action now, your 70s and 80s will make it clear in ways you cannot ignore. You'll feel it in the slower mornings when getting out of bed takes effort, in the stiffness of your joints, in the fog that clouds your thinking, or in the number of pill bottles lining your cabinet as prescriptions start to multiply. And here's where most people go wrong. They wait until something breaks. They wait for the diagnosis, the fall, the crisis. But by then, you're no longer making changes. You're just managing damage. The time to act is not when your doctor raises the red flag. It's now, when your body is still whispering to you through subtle stiffness, through unexpected fatigue, through that little hunch in your back, or the shortness of breath on the stairs. These whispers are warnings, and if you listen now, you can prevent them from ever becoming shouts. I remember Charlie, who at 65 used to laugh at the idea of doing stretches. He'd wave his hand and say, "That's for yoga folks, not for me." But by the time he turned 72, the laughter was gone. He couldn't get out of a chair without someone helping him. Years of avoiding movement had left his muscles weak, stiff, and unresponsive. He believed he had plenty of time to take care of himself, but the truth was, he didn't. And the price he paid wasn't only physical pain. The real cost showed up in his confidence, his independence, and the joy he once carried so naturally. It changes how you present yourself to the world. When standing up becomes a struggle, you go out less. When digestion doesn't feel right, you start eating less. When fatigue lingers day after day, laughter fades from your life. That's how aging quietly steals your spirit. Not all at once, but through 100 tiny retreats. Yet, here's the hopeful part. Your body is always listening, always ready to respond the moment you begin treating it with respect. You don't have to train like an athlete or run marathons. You don't need to give up every comfort or live like a saint in the kitchen. What truly matters is that you move more than you sit. Choose foods your grandmother would recognize as real nourishment. Breathe deeply enough to feel your chest expand. Drink water as though it were medicine. Stretch your body as if you're creating space for your future self. And most importantly, don't sit around waiting for motivation to suddenly appear. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is what carries you through. And discipline comes from having a clear vision of who you want to be 10, 15, or even 20 years from now. The habits you build in your 60s are not small. They are the ones that will either support you or crush you in your 80s. If your future self could reach back and speak to you today, I can almost guarantee they would beg you, "Take care of me. I'm counting on you." Truth 7. Most of what you feared never actually happened. Yet the constant worrying still managed to steal decades from your life. Looking back now, I can say with certainty that nearly every fear that kept me awake at night turned out to be far less threatening than I imagined. The money problems I thought would ruin me, they passed. The awkward conversations I dreaded, they were over in minutes. the future I thought I could control through worry. It never played out the way my fears had painted it. It arrived in ways I never could have predicted, so often gentler, smaller, and less devastating than my imagination had made it out to be. But that didn't stop me from worrying. For years, even decades, I wasted precious time rehearsing worst-case scenarios in my mind. I played out arguments that never took place, braced for disasters that never arrived, and carried the weight of problems that didn't even exist. And what did all of that really accomplish? It stole my peace, day by day. Worry is sly like that. It convinces you that you're being responsible, that by anticipating the worst, you're somehow preparing for it. But in truth, worry is just fear wearing a mask. And the more space you give it in your mind, the more it trains your brain to expect danger even when none is there. It's like living with an alarm bell that never shuts off. I used to spend countless nights worrying about my kids, who they would marry, how they would handle money, what would happen if they made the wrong career choice. But do you know what happened? They figured it out. Not always perfectly, not without mistakes, but well enough to live their own lives. And all those nights I spent pacing the floor or staring at the ceiling didn't help them at all. The only thing it did was wear me down, leaving me more tired, more anxious, and less present. We convince ourselves that worrying keeps us safe, that it somehow shields us or the people we love. But it doesn't. What truly protects us is wisdom, deliberate action, and the humility to let go of what we can't control. Worry offers none of that. It doesn't build solutions. It doesn't strengthen relationships. It doesn't heal bodies. All it does is chew through the precious hours of your life, leaving nothing behind but exhaustion. And here's the harshest truth. Worry robs from both directions. It strips away the peace of your present moments, and it clouds the beauty of your memories. Looking back, I can see that I missed some of the most joyful chapters of my life, not because trouble struck, but because I was too distracted, too busy bracing for storms that never came. Maybe you're worrying right now about retirement, about your health, about relationships, or even about the state of the world. I understand because I've been there. But stop and ask yourself, how much of that is actually in your control? And how much of it is just you rehearsing pain that may never show up? The peace you're looking for doesn't wait for perfection. Peace doesn't come when life is flawless. It comes when you finally realize that most of what you fear will either never happen, or if it does, it won't matter nearly as much as you thought. That's the turning point. So please, don't hand over your precious years to anxiety. Don't let your imagination waste your joy by writing chapters of tragedies that may never exist. Instead, breathe a little deeper, take walks that clear your mind, laugh sooner and louder, and trust in the truth you've already proven. Every hard day you've ever faced, you survived. The strength that carried you before will carry you again. It always has, and it always will. Truth 8. Your career will never hold your hand when you're sick, scared, or lonely. For decades, many of us pour ourselves into work as if it's the very core of who we are. We arrive early, stay late, sacrifice holidays, birthdays, even grieve quietly at our desks because we think pushing through is what strong people do. And yes, that dedication shapes parts of us. But here's the reality. Work is not the same as life. Eventually, the promotions, the applause, and the recognition fade. The inbox goes quiet. The projects you once bled energy into are handed off to someone else, and you're left with a haunting question. Was it all worth it? In your 60s, it's easy to still be chasing the next title, the next accomplishment, the next badge of honor. Ambition itself isn't wrong, but mistaking your job for your identity is, because one day, whether it comes suddenly or drags out slowly, your career will end. And when it does, it won't miss you. I've seen it happen again and again. Friends who thought they were indispensable retired and were forgotten within weeks. Some watched their office cleaned out the very day they left. Others spent years building a team only to be replaced without so much as a thank you. It wasn't cruelty. It was simply the nature of the machine. Work moves on, always hungry, never pausing to grieve. I think of Gerald, a man who gave 35 years of his life to the same company. He was the dependable one, the first to arrive, the last to leave, the one who canceled vacations and missed birthdays for the sake of deadlines. But when he was diagnosed with cancer at 73, he told me, "I thought the company would send someone to check in, not even a card." His voice carried more sorrow in that moment than all the years of sacrifice ever could. That moment crushed him more than the diagnosis itself. Because in that instant, he realized what so many of us eventually discover. Jobs can give us purpose, yes, but they were never meant to be the whole story. When health issues arrive, when grief settles in, when aging slows you down, or even when simple loneliness creeps in, it's not your title that comforts you. It's people. It's the relationships you've built, the memories you've made, and the peace of mind you carry with you when the calendar is suddenly empty. If you've spent your entire adult life measuring your worth by your productivity or the hours you've put in, retirement can feel less like freedom and more like exile. You wake up without meetings, without deadlines, without tasks demanding your attention, and you wonder, who am I now? But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be that way. If you begin today to nurture friendships, explore hobbies, invest in your health, and create routines that aren't tied to your work, you'll soften the landing when the career chapter closes. You'll discover that you are still valuable, still engaged, still fully yourself, even without the paycheck or the badge that once defined you. So, by all means, keep working if it brings you joy. Keep building if it fills you with purpose. But don't neglect the deeper investments, the ones that matter most when the office lights go dark. Because when life grows quiet, it won't be your resume that sits beside you in the silence. It will be your peace of mind, your relationships, and the comfort of knowing you lived a life beyond the walls of your career. And that is who you'll want beside you when things get hard. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights meaningful, please comment number 8 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss future videos. Your support helps us continue creating thoughtful content to inform and inspire. Now, let's move forward. Truth 9. If you don't downsize your ego, life will do it for you. You spend the first half of your life proving yourself to your parents, your peers, your bosses, maybe even to the reflection in your own mirror. And that drive isn't always bad. It gets you through school, helps you climb the career ladder, raise children, and build a name. But here's the hard truth. Ego only serves you until the day it begins to hurt you. The older you get, the more you realize that pride, if left unchecked, becomes its own kind of prison. It doesn't just limit what you can do, it holds you back from what you truly need. Pride stops you from asking for help, even when the help could save you from pain. It keeps you from admitting when you've made a mistake, even when forgiveness is waiting. And perhaps most dangerously, it convinces you that needing others is the same thing as weakness. That illusion, if you let it take root, will cost you far more than you can imagine. I've seen men in their 80s who fell but refused to tell anyone, choosing silence over support. I've seen women who could no longer carry their groceries but insisted on struggling alone. And I've known people who would rather suffer quietly than admit they couldn't drive safely or manage a set of stairs without risk. They weren't looking for pity, they were clinging to dignity. But here's the truth. Dignity doesn't come from pretending to be unbreakable. It comes from the wisdom to know when to lean on others. I remember Frances. She was 76 when her doctor gently suggested she begin using a walker. Her response was immediate. "I'm not that old yet." For months she resisted, determined to prove she didn't need it. But then, one afternoon outside the pharmacy, she fell and broke her wrist. That walker wasn't her enemy. It was her ally. She had needed it long before the accident, but her pride pushed it off until her body finally paid the price. In the end, it wasn't her strength that failed her. It was her unwillingness to accept help. Your ego might whisper, "If I ask for help, people will see me as weak." But strength has never been about who needs the least help. True strength lies in knowing when to reach out, when to accept, and when to say, I can't do this alone. There's an incredible power in giving others the chance to show up for you, to stand beside you, and to remind you that you don't have to carry everything by yourself. And this lesson goes far beyond physical ability. It's in how you handle apologies, how you process grief, how you adjust to changes in your role, your relevance, and even your influence. The world isn't trying to humiliate you as you age, it's inviting you into a new kind of grace. But if you continue to measure yourself only by past achievements or cling too tightly to the idea of who you once were, the natural process of aging will feel like a punishment instead of the passage into wisdom and resilience that it can be. The ego always fights for the spotlight, but the later chapters of life reward something very different: humility. Let people help you. Let your identity evolve into something deeper. Allow yourself to be seen not as the one who used to carry everything alone, but as the one wise enough to recognize what truly matters now. Because the smaller your ego becomes, the more room you create for peace, for real connection, and for the kind of growth that makes aging rich instead of hollow. And that leads us into the final truth. You won't feel old at 60, but you will regret waiting until you finally do to start acting like time truly matters. Aging doesn't announce itself with a loud warning or a flashing sign. There is no morning when you wake up and say, "Well, I'm officially old now." It arrives in small shifts, almost invisible at first. At 60, you may notice only slight changes: a little stiffness in the morning, a bit less speed when you walk, or an ache that lingers longer than it used to. But overall, you still feel sharp, steady, and capable. And that's exactly what makes this truth so dangerous. Because when you feel that good, it's far too easy to keep postponing. You tell yourself there's still time to focus on your health, to mend broken relationships, to pursue those dreams you've carried for decades. But here's what no one warns you about. 60 melts into 70 faster than you expect, and 70 slips into 80 before you've even adjusted. You think you're coasting, but the ground beneath your feet is shifting quietly. You don't feel old until one day you suddenly do. The climb grows steeper, the aches last longer, the fatigue sets in quicker. And by then, many of the doors you thought would always be open are no longer there to walk through. I remember a neighbor of mine, Ron. At 62, he often talked about taking his wife on a cross-country road trip, something they had dreamed about for years. He said he would do it once he felt retired enough, once things settled. But by 68, his wife was diagnosed with early dementia. By 70, she no longer recognized his name. That trip never happened. Not because they lacked the will or the desire, but because they waited. The truth is this: 60 is not an ending point, it's a turning point. It's the season where every choice carries more weight than before, where each delay becomes more costly, and where action taken today can shape decades of independence, meaning, and joy. It's the last chapter where most of your faculties are still working, where your choices are still wide open, and where your body is still willing to respond if you give it the chance. This season is the perfect time to realign your priorities and take action. Yet, most people don't. They wait for a wake-up call, and when it finally comes, it's rarely gentle. Too often, I've heard people say with regret, "I wish I had started sooner. I didn't realize how fast everything would change. I thought I had more time." So if you're in your 60s, or even your 70s, and you feel strong, mobile, and generally in good health, take that as your sign. That is your invitation to act now. Not to delay, not to keep saying someday, but to start building the habits, the memories, and the resilience that will carry you through the years ahead with dignity instead of desperation. Don't wait until the day you feel old to live like your time matters, because by then, you may already be racing against the clock. When I look back on these 10 truths, one lesson stands above the rest. Aging isn't only about what happens to your body, it's about what happens to your priorities, your relationships, your memories, and even your perspective on the world. And the earlier you recognize that, the more power you have to shape your later years into something meaningful, something rich, something more than just long. Ask yourself, what stood out to you the most? Was it the quiet erosion of health that sneaks in when you're not paying attention? Was it the subtle drift that can happen in a marriage if you stop nurturing it? Was it the trap of centering your entire identity around your career or your children? Whatever struck you most, don't ignore it. Hold on to it. Let it sink in and guide you, and more importantly, do something with it. You are not too late, far from it. Whether you're in your 60s, your 70s, or even approaching 80, you still have time to live with greater intention, more awareness, and a deeper focus on what truly matters. These truths were never meant to frighten you. They are here to liberate you, to remind you that you are not powerless or stuck in place. This stage of life simply asks for a different kind of strength. So why not begin today? Make one small shift. Call one person you've been meaning to reconnect with. Let go of one old resentment that has weighed you down. Take one short walk to remind your body it still wants to move. Choose one nourishing meal instead of something quick and empty. Speak one honest word you've been holding back for too long. Because while life will never hand back the moments already gone, it will always reward the steps you take now, with more clarity, stronger connections, and a sense of peace that grows each day. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you, so leave a comment below and share one lesson that spoke to you most and how you plan to bring it into your own life. Your reflections matter, and we read every word with gratitude. If this video inspired or helped you in any way, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Your support allows us to keep creating meaningful content designed to inform, uplift, and encourage you. Wishing you good health, happiness, and peace always. And remember to subscribe to our channel so we can continue this journey together.